Good evening, Mark Sutton, HurricaneTrack.com here with a Hurricane Matthew update, almost 9 o'clock Eastern Time. This is the visible satellite animation. It gets dark, and so it switches over to the nighttime version of that. What I want to point out here tonight, the main thing, is for interest here in the ABC Islands, Aruba, Bonaire, Curacao. Clearly the center of Matthew going to stay up to the north of you, even if it loses a little bit of latitude as it moves off to the west. The core of the strongest winds will remain away. Winds are only 75 miles per hour, so it's really not a big concern. What could be a concern, look at this huge explosion of convection over on the eastern side, thunderstorms going up into the atmosphere. If something like that were to happen in one of these bands right over any of these islands here over the next couple of days, that could bring very heavy rainfall, gusty winds, and just very miserable conditions for a short period of time as something like that were to move through. So that's something you can't predict ahead of time. None of the models are going to see that, and that is why the tropical storm watches are up, part of the reason anyway, and that can happen anywhere along the coast over here, just as you're seeing in this part of northern Venezuela and just offshore. So keep that in mind. It's not going to be able to be predicted. It's just going to happen. And I guarantee you, these folks down here, probably quite a light show. I bet there's some lightning in there. You get this dry air that comes pulled off the continent, drier, certainly, than what's up here. And the instability in the atmosphere just helps these explode. And boy, I tell you, if that goes over on top of you, it can be a very unpleasant experience, to be sure, even if you're not near the center of the hurricane. And that's why we talk about that, don't focus on the center up here and say, oh, well, look at that. The center is going to be far enough away. I don't have to worry about it. Again, if something like that pops up right on top of you, it's not, the worst thing ever, but it's enough that you need to be paying close attention to it. The thinking is this will continue off generally to the west, maybe slightly south of west, and then turn up towards the windward passage up here. In this region, over the next several days, that really hasn't changed too much. However, the current 0Z model plots, the spaghetti plots as they're called, just came out a few minutes ago. And these are some of your hurricane-specific models like the HWRF and the GFDL and some of your simpler statistical models. But generally, you look at this and you can get an idea. They're starting to lean a little bit more towards the west here. More and more of these models leaning closer to Jamaica overall. The official forecast track, notice this right here. This is from the 5 p.m. advisory, and all of the model guidance is to the west of that. So make of that what you will. We'll see if they reflect it in the 11 o'clock advisory, which will be coming out in a couple of hours, and we'll see what happens. Boy, I tell you, a lot of people are going to be watching this, and for good reason. If you are in Jamaica, I would start saying, hey, look, you better be getting ready for a hurricane. Very basic preparations at this point. Put your plans into motion, infrastructure that can be shored up, things like that, just to be ready. It's not time to put it into full force mode, but this is looking more like an eastern Jamaica possible direct hit. And then, of course, Cuba. I don't think there's any way Cuba gets out of this. Much better news for the Dominican Republic and Haiti, as this system appears to be moving farther away. Somebody's texting me on the old iPhone, so I better go get that. I am Mark Sutton, HurricaneTrack.com. Thanks for tuning in. I'll have more for you starting tomorrow morning.